Well, hello, my name is John Watts. I want to welcome you to our normal Friday Q&A webinar. And we're going to answer some questions about debt collection suits and dealing with debt collectors. It's one of the most common area of questions that we get because there are just simply so many collection lawsuits out there. We've talked about this in other videos, but you take a company like Midland Funding. They file 100 lawsuits in Alabama every week. It's an amazing, they're quite to that height, but they still file a whole bunch of lawsuits. So we've got, let's see, 5 questions. And unless we have any live questions while we're doing this, we'll just cover these 5. And I'll just start with the very first one. Can you be sued in a different county than where you currently live? So it's a great question because in this society, we might start off over here and then we move over here and then move over there. So where are you supposed to be sued? Well, if we're dealing with a consumer debt, that's something that's covered by the FDCPA, the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, then you can only be sued in the county where you live or the county where you took out the credit card, the medical bill, whatever it might be, whatever that kind of underlying debt is that you've been sued on. So give you a recent example. So a lady took out a debt in, I believe, Madison County, and then she lived in Lauderdale County for a little bit and now is in Jefferson County. Well, they sued her in Lauderdale County. Is that proper or improper? Well, it's not where she lives now when she's been sued, and it was not where she created this debt. So that would be an improper county. So what does that mean? Well, under the FDCPA, so if we're talking about a debt collector here, if they sue you in the wrong county, then that's a violation of the FDCPA. Now, it could be that they have a valid reason for doing that, but it is a violation. And so we look at kind of the whole spectrum and say, you know, if they've done everything else right, but they sued us in the wrong county and it's a very understandable mistake, do we do anything about it? Typically not. But if they sued you on a debt you don't owe and they come to court and they have no proof and they do false credit reporting and they do this and they do that and they sued you in the wrong county, well, absolutely. You just stack this on top of each other because they're just doing one violation after another. And so it definitely is a violation if you're sued in the wrong county. And please keep in mind, Alabama courts have their own rules about where you can be sued, where you cannot be sued. And they don't always line up perfectly with the federal court. So an Alabama court might say, well, you have more options on where to sue. But under this federal law, the FDCPA, a debt collector has to comply with that. Or if they want to ignore it, that's fine. But then they can't whine about, I can't believe we got sued and how terrible. No, you knew you were violating the law, so deal with it. Okay, so our next question is, what is the difference between circuit court, district court, and small claims court? So circuit court is our big court. It's the court where you can be sued for $1 million or $1 billion. It's where we have jury trials. And typically we're seeing cases that are around $10,000 or above get in circuit court. So that's the high court. Beneath that's what's called district court. And that goes up to $10,000. There's no jury trial in that. And then beneath that, we have something called small claims court. So we have circuit court, district court, small claims court. It used to be, I think, $3,000 was the limit, and now it's been raised up to, I think, $6,000. Typically, the judge in small claims and district court, same judge, same courtroom. There are some different rules. Small claims rules are a little more relaxed. The district court, it's same rules as far as evidence as in circuit court. Now, the big difference is in circuit court, you can do what's called discovery, and the collector against you can do discovery. Interrogatories, requests for production, requests for admissions, depositions, and we talk about those in other videos. In district court, it's pretty rare that that ever happens. Small claims, absolutely no discovery. So different levels there. If you are sued in small claims or district court and you're unhappy with the result, you can appeal it to circuit court, and it just starts completely from scratch, as if what happened here in small claims or district court never happened. So hopefully that helps you to get a little bit of perspective about the courts. And again, we have lots of other videos that get into details about if you want to handle this on your own, how do you handle it on your own? And actually we have a whole video series on that. May not be live as of today, but that should be going up very soon. Okay, so our third question is, what do I do if I find out my bank accounts have been wiped out by a collection law firm? So this question came from somebody that I think it was over the holiday weekend. Yeah, they're having a great time. All of a sudden on Monday, boom, bank accounts are wiped out. What in the world happened? So the very first step is you look and say, okay, do I have a judgment against me? Because maybe there's a judgment way back here, 2005, 2010, even earlier than that. And now here we are in 2015, and boom, it pops up for the first time. You never knew about it because you're never served. Well, you got to know, is there a judgment? So you look that up. You call the court. If your bank account's been garnished, typically your bank will have an indication of which court case that came from. And so you call the court, or if you're in Alabama, you can contact us. We'll look it up for you. My phone number is 205-879-2447. And you can ask to speak to Carolyn in my office, and she'll be glad to look that up for you. So is there a judgment? If there is a judgment, were you served? So did you, under the definitions of the rules, did you get a copy of the lawsuit? And did you get it in the right way? So that's normally, it's personally delivered to you, certified mail to you, or they give it to an adult who lives in your house where you lived at the time that those papers were handed. Typically, that means you've been served validly. If you were not served, and particularly if you never knew about this until you get garnished, well, then you attack that service. And if you can make that service go away, well, then it's almost like, here's the judgment. It rests on top of you being served. If you pull the service out and you show the court, hey, I wasn't served, that judgment just falls apart. It doesn't make the lawsuit go away. Lawsuit's still out there. You've got to deal with the lawsuit, but you're in a much stronger position because now you have an opportunity to defend yourself. You're not being garnished, your wages, your bank account. So that's the number one step. Now, what if you say, I remember being served, I just ignored it? Well, then it's going to be very difficult, if not impossible, to attack that service. So this judgment stands. Well, what do you do now? You can look at filing bankruptcy. You can look at doing a lump sum settlement. You can do a monthly settlement with them, with the collection law firm. Now, you can do that on your own, or you can hire a lawyer. And we're not going to get into all those details in this the context of this webinar, but let me just say this. A lot of times you can do this on your own. You just need to have a plan. You need to know how you're going to negotiate and make sure whatever deal you get is actually honored by the collector. And we've talked about this in other contexts. I use this example because it comes up nearly every week. Say there's a $5,000 judgment. You talk with the lawyers. They say, hey, if you pay us $3,000, we're done. You go, great. You pay them $3,000. And then 6 months later, they come after you garnishing $2,000. You go, well, wait, I was done. And they go, no. You just paid $3,000 and it was $5,000. You paid $3,000, so now you owe $2,000. You say, no. It was a settlement. They go, well, where's the proof of that? You go, well, we had a conversation. Look, if that happens, you may still be able to sue that debt collector for lying to you if you've got sufficient proof. But the safe thing to do is have this in writing. Make sure, if you do it on your own, make sure you negotiate a good deal, and then underneath that, you get it lock solid. That it's just rock solid. There's no question about what the deal is, or is there any misunderstanding down the road. So, and of course, you can hire a lawyer if you're in Alabama, or this is a judgment in Alabama, you can contact us. We'll be glad to give you options. Normally, what we do is if we know we've been served, then we will look at your situation, give you a quote as far as a fee, and then usually if we cannot get it settled, then you don't owe us that money. So I'm not sure if I've ever done it differently, actually, but the idea is you're going to pay us that money if it gets settled. Okay. Now, if it's an invalid service where we can attack that judgment to try to, or that service to pull that service away so judgment falls. Now, again, we'll give you a fee, and that may be you pay us that whether we're successful or not, because we're doing a certain amount of work. So we'll give you different options if you want to talk with us as far as having a lawyer help you. Okay, so our next question, this is our next to last question. What happens if I ignore the Nathan and Nathan lawsuit they filed for NCSLT? Now, let me just define a couple of terms. Nathan and Nathan is a large Birmingham collection law firm, and NCSLT is the National Collegiate Student Loan Trust. And to my knowledge, Nathan Nathan is the only law firm in Alabama, at least as I'm recording this video on, what was it, September 25th, I think. September 25th, 2015. I think they're the only law firm in Alabama that actually files the National Collegiate Student Loan Trust cases. So the question is, what if I ignore them? And yeah, what if I ignore the lawsuit? Well, let me even back up if I can. What if you ignore the collection letters from them on National Collegiate Student Loan Trust? Typically, you're going to get sued. Okay. Maybe this happens, I don't know about, but I don't know if Nathan just repeatedly sending out collection letters and you ignore them and they go, okay, well, we'll just drop it. Now, they tend to sue. They file a lot of lawsuits every month. And these are not $3,000, $4,000 lawsuits. These are $20,000, $50,000, $150,000 lawsuits, private student loans. If you ignore it, they get a judgment. And I can't tell you the number of people who come to my firm. They go, well, I saw something on the news that said they couldn't sue you on student loans, or this National Collegiate Student Loan is not a legitimate place, or Nathan's not a real law firm. And so I just ignored it because they can't touch me. Well, they can touch you. They can go in, touch your bank account, garnish your wages, and this big judgment just keeps growing and growing and growing every year with interest. So let's talk about it. Is Nathan a legitimate collection law firm? Absolutely. They're licensed lawyers. They're real lawyers. I don't know what you read on the internet, but they are a legitimate law firm, and they file lawsuits and they show up to court. Now, what about National Collegiate? Somebody says, well, I heard that place is kind of a little sketchy. I agree. I have some very serious concerns about the legitimacy of National Collegiate Student Loan Trust. They come in, they say, we own your debt. We bought your student loan from Charter One or Charter Bank or Marblehead. There's all these different entities that are involved in this. It's kind of like the mortgage industry. The company that makes you a loan, they don't hold on to the loan. And it usually starts here, it gets sold to this company, it gets sold to this company, it gets put into this trust. And that's where National Collegiate Student Loan Trust is. They say, well, we own it. Well, they actually have to prove that. If you fight them, they have to prove it. Now, if you settle, and sometimes that's the best move to settle, they don't have to prove it. But if you fight them, they have to prove it. So I do have some very serious questions about this company. But they do file lawsuits. They are real lawsuits, and you better take them really seriously, because if you don't, they will get a real judgment against you. Maybe a default judgment, maybe a summary judgment, maybe at trial. But if you ignore it, bad things will happen. So what's the solution? Don't ignore it. And we actually have, I forget the name of it, but You can look on our YouTube channel or just Google probably Alabama consumer student loan lawsuit or something like that. But we have like maybe an hour and 20-minute video on probably everything you wanted to know and more about being sued by National Collegiate Student Loan Trust. And so you can check that out if you'd like more information. Okay, last one is the collection law firm of Nadler legitimate? So, I get a lot of people that contact our firm, and a lot of people from out of state, even though we don't want that. We always say this is for Alabama folks only, but let's just limit it to Alabama people. A lot of times people are calling because they've been sued or they got a collection letter and they're saying, well, hey, is this law firm legitimate? What about this? I just got this phone call saying you're going to be arrested, thrown in prison. We're going to deport your family. What's going on? So there's a lot of collectors out there that are absolute scam collectors. It's some guy in his basement with a prepaid cell phone and he's lying, or Pakistan or somewhere out of the country. And then there are legitimate companies. Now, when I say legitimate, they may still break the law. We see a lot of legitimate companies because they're real companies, but they really break the law. Okay. But if they're illegitimate, if it's a scam company, there's not much you can do about it. I mean, you can report them to the authorities, but how do you sue a guy in his basement that's prepaid cell phone? He's going to flee the country or he's already out of the country. So it's wise to be skeptical. But I'll just say this. If you get a letter from somebody saying that they're a lawyer, okay, if you get a phone call from somebody saying they're a lawyer, say, look, send me a letter. So if you're holding in your hands a letter, across the top it says attorney at law, then you need to take that very, very seriously. Check it out. Again, if you're in Alabama, give us a call, 205-879-2447. We can tell you whether or not it's a legitimate place. So the question is about Nadler. Are they legitimate? Absolutely, they're legitimate. This is a real law firm. I forget how many lawyers I have, maybe 5 lawyers. But they are a real law firm, and they really do sue. And I can tell you with debt buyers, one of the main ones they represent, at least to my knowledge, is Calvary. Calvary Portfolio. It's called different things, but it's Calvary. And so they file a lot of lawsuits. They also file, as I recall, a good bit of medical type collection. I think they also file for Sterling, which is like K Jeweler, but I guess that's the name of the official name of the company. So they file lots of lawsuits. They show up in court. Now, do I always agree with them? No. And we've had our differences. But this is a real law firm. They're licensed in Alabama. They file lawsuits in Alabama. And if you ignore them, if you go, they're not legitimate, I'm not going to pay any attention to them, then you do that at your risk. And the consequences are typically going to be that you're holding a judgment in your hand. You're holding a garnishment in your hand of your wages or a garnishment of your bank account or all the above. Okay. And you have to have a judgment to get a garnishment. But my point is, they get that judgment against you, and then all these bad things start building on top of that. So should you ignore them? No. Are they legitimate? Absolutely. Take it very, very seriously if you're sued by this law firm. They know what they're doing. They've been around. They'll show up at court. So you have to treat them very seriously. So I hope that these questions and answers have been helpful to you. If you will continue to submit questions to us, you can do it below in a comment. You can put a comment on our website, alabamaconsumer.com. You can click a button. I think, contact us on there. And you can fill out a form. You can give us a question. You can call us, 205-879-2447. And we'll be happy to add your question to the list. We have a pretty long list of questions, but that's a good thing. We got plenty of material to go through. And unless I do another one of these a little bit early, then I should see you again next Friday. And again, my name is John Watts. I may not have said that at the beginning, but my name is John Watts, lawyer here in Alabama, and represent people all over the state of Alabama. We have an office in Birmingham, have an office in Madison, the Huntsville area, And we also represent people in Mobile, Montgomery, really anywhere in the state, we represent you. So be glad to help you if you have questions or there's something we can do for you. So alabamaconsumer.com and 205-879-2447. Hope you have a great weekend, and I will talk to you next week. Okay, thanks. Bye-bye.